Okay, thank you very much for joining us for today's webinar from Marketing Evolution and Team One. Today's webinar, Modernize Your Approach to Marketing Measurement, during today's webinar, we hope to deliver a practical roadmap to help today's marketers achieve a high marketing ROI for their investments. Quick housekeeping note here, if you are interested in submitting a question during today's webinar, you can do so on the right-hand side of your screen. You should see the access panel to ask questions. Simply click on the question box, and we'll be able to answer your questions. All right, let's get started. Today, I'm really pleased to have Jason Pileshi joining us. Jason joined Marketing Evolution earlier this year as a product marketing director. Jason has more than a 15-year track record of leading successful marketing initiatives for both Fortune 500 companies and startups. He earned a Master's of Integrated Marketing at New York University with a concentration in digital marketing, and did his undergraduate work at the University of Connecticut. Thank you for taking the time to talk with us today, Jason.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Larry. I'm really excited to be here today. As you've mentioned, I've been a marketer for over 15 years. And throughout my career, I must say that I've had kind of a love-hate relationship with marketing measurement. I've always been passionate about using data to inform marketing decisions, but I've also struggled a lot along the way too. So whether it was testing creative, understanding which media channels achieve the highest ROI, or even justifying my marketing spend to my CFO, I've really never felt like I had all the right tools or information. So that's why I'm really excited to be here today to share my experiences and be here on behalf of Marketing Evolution, who I really think is bringing the latest marketing measurement tools to the market and helping marketers not only transform how they work, but what they know and when they know it. So again, thanks again, and I really hope our attendees find the next 45 minutes valuable.
Great, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate Jennifer Bolt joining us today. Jennifer is based in Dallas, Texas. She's the Executive Director of Media and Integration. Jennifer leads a national team and oversees all facets of media strategy and buying for Lexus Automotive. She collaborates closely with analytics as a champion for innovation throughout the agency, and she's an expert in multi-touch attribution. She earned her degree at Oklahoma State University. Thank you for joining us today, Jennifer. We're eager to hear your insights.
Well, thank you. I really am honored to be included in this webinar today and excited to share my perspective on multi-touch attribution, as well as the continued evolution of the media and marketing space, which has been something that I've been passionate about for quite some time over the course of my career in media strategy, as well as in the ad technology space. So, I really enjoy being able to continue to see how the future moves forward and how brands can take advantage of creating greater efficiency and effectiveness in their marketing and their messaging.
Thanks again, Jason and Jennifer, for joining us today. Let's get started. Just a quick overview. This afternoon, we will cover three main things. One, diagnosing the problem of attribution. Second, we'll share some tips on how one might go about finding a solution. And third, we're going to share some real insights from both Jason and Jen's experience about how to onboard an attribution solution as quickly as possible in the most effective way possible so that you can start realizing returns on that investment quickly. But let's dig into the problem. The first real milestone along our journey today is talking about diagnosing the problem. How do you know there is a problem? Well, I wanted to take you through what some analysts are saying. Forrester, in their recent wave analysis, really talked about how many marketing mix models that we've been using in the past just aren't fast enough to deal with today's marketplace, and they don't deliver insights quickly enough to provide optimization while you're in campaign. Gartner has talked about the fact that many tools that are available in the market or that were available in the market are always backward looking. They're not really great at predicting the future, and they struggle to measure low spend channels. So it makes it very difficult for today's marketers to test and learn, especially with so many new channels being developed and coming on board. How do you find out whether or not a dollar spent in Facebook is better than a dollar spent in terrestrial radio, satellite radio, or perhaps on a Pinterest campaign? Jason, I was wondering if you might take us through some of the specific challenges of legacy measurement tools and perhaps talk about a few advantages to today's measurement tools.
Sure. So there's really three ways I see marketing measurement has evolved over the past few years. One is from a modeling standpoint. Two is from a media planning standpoint. And three is its impact on the marketing function itself. So let's start with modeling. Let's take a look at modeling first. So as everyone knows, marketing models are created for a purpose. They make assumptions about what they represent, and they consist of variables that describe the relationships of interest. And because they make these assumptions, if your math is wrong, your analytics is wrong, your attribution is wrong. And therefore, really, your efforts to improve your ROI and budget can suffer. So really having those right models can make or break your marketing success. But the good news is that modeling has improved considerably over the past few years. So let's take a look at the past. So in the past, models were extremely static. They couldn't adapt to new inputs. They weren't very durable. So one input could literally break your model. And they also took a lot of effort to build, which meant that they were expensive. So that's the past. So today's models are becoming much, much more effective. They can adapt to many different data sources, from broadcast media to mobile interactions to print subscriptions and a host of other consumer data. New models are also much more flexible. They can actually synthesize data into actionable insights and provide campaign recommendations across the entire media mix and show how your channels are working in concert, working together to achieve your marketing goals. And just like other SaaS-based solutions, marketing measurement tools are beginning to incorporate artificial intelligence. And this is going to enable them to automatically learn and adapt over time. So I think at this point, I'd love to hear from Jen. So from a agency standpoint, what does these more sophisticated models mean for you?
Well, it really, starting with the consumer, it gives us much deeper insights into the consumer and their behavior and their engagement with media than we've ever had before, as well as what their engagement is with the messaging, which is really what's driving that emotion, evoking emotion from them and speaking to them so that they motivate to take action. So that's really critical for us. Another piece of it is around the increased targeting that comes as a result of understanding your consumer better, and obviously efficiency and how we're spending our media budget. So we can look across the array of media choices out there and know that we are making the right choices at the right time to be able to meet our objectives and our goals. And then also speed to market. I mean, it really allows us to be much more flexible, creative, and dynamic when it comes to what we're putting in market at the time we're putting it in market, and making sure that we are doing everything that we can do to be as effective during a campaign as absolutely possible, which is what it's all about. Because once that campaign ends, you don't have a chance to go back and do it over again.
Great, that's excellent. So let's move on to media planning. So I think the second way marketing measurement has evolved is really around media planning. In the past, it was not uncommon to develop completely independent media plans for each channel, whether it was TV, print ads, out-of-home campaigns. All of these all of your campaigns were done in silos. Media plans were also often done by hand, certainly not with any intelligent software behind them. You also had to make decisions around your national versus regional focus well before the campaign launched, and you really couldn't make adjustments during the campaign. And media plans were often only updated on an annual basis. Today, that's really changed significantly. Every plan involves, as you know, several media working in concert together to achieve your goals. Artificial intelligence can be used to plan or automatically update your media plan based on learnings about what combination of media, creative, and spend achieves the highest ROI. And then finally, media plans can be person-based. This means that the data used to develop or optimize your media plans are based on individual person-level information and media exposure data. So from here, I'd like Jen to shed a little bit more light onto how you've seen your clients' media plans change over the past few years.
Absolutely. I mean, I think this is an important point because, as I mentioned, we've never had more choice in terms of where we can place our advertising dollars and our messaging. We've got more choice, more research, more data, and it can be quite overwhelming at times to contemplate how do you take all of that that's available to us today and put it into something that is going to be the best possible plan for that campaign that we're working on. And, we work with multi-tiered clients. My experience has been with a lot of multi-tiered clients. And by that, I mean, you've got a manufacturer, then you have a distribution network, and then ultimately the consumer base. And those media plans have always depended on people to integrate what's happening at a national level with what's going on at a local level across the channel mix, and also looking at optimizing against your goals and your efficiency. So it can be quite difficult to pull that off at times, especially if you have that multi-tier being conducted by multiple agencies. It's always kind of corralling all of the parties together to try to make that work. And then you also have your client dynamics at play between sometimes competing priorities between the manufacturer and the distributor. But that's just one element of it. The other thing, as you mentioned, about the annual planning process, not really being able to touch that until the next year, that's occurred really at a national level, while on the local level, you've had a very reactive, sometimes base of plans because that media is more fluid and you have an opportunity to make changes. And what you find a lot of times at that level is that your distribution network, whether it be franchisees, bottlers, or automobile dealers, they can be very reactive to competitive pressure. And when that occurs, sometimes they're reacting without really understanding the extent of the threat and the effectiveness of their own plan that they already have in place. So oftentimes they're making decisions and moving media around or canceling schedules or putting schedules into the market just based on what they're seeing from their competition. This now gives us the ability to really hold true to what we put forth in the market if it's really working for us. And if it's not, then we'll know why it's not working, what specifically is not working about it, and make only those changes that we need to make. And then lastly, over the course of time, digital as a channel was always one that we could optimize. And now we have the ability to optimize other channels in the mix, which is pretty exciting. So all of this evolution has come on pretty quickly over the last couple of years. And that pace of change is not going to go away. It's just going to continue to accelerate. And tools like this give us the ability to be able to stay on top of it.
Excellent. Thanks for that insight. So let's move on to the third way marketing measurement has evolved, which is really its impact on the marketing function itself. So previously, marketers would look backwards at their campaign results and use that to inform their next campaign. Also, marketers often targeted very broad audiences, which frankly waste your marketing dollars. And then from an insight standpoint, marketers use tools that would simply report only on performance after the fact. In contrast, today's more modern solution, they provide the ability to make course corrections actually during the campaign, enabling you to adjust the creative, the channel, the spend, or even all three during the campaign to maximize your return on investment. They also allow us to get much more targeted, even at the individual person level, and they help you predict results rather than simply report on that performance. So here, Jen, I'd like to hear your thoughts on the ability of these new tools to actually predict results and how much of a reality in-campaign optimizations are for you and your clients.
Great. Here we're really talking about sometimes it takes a very well coordinated team. I'll start with kind of what's that ability to optimize while you're in campaign. You really have to be well coordinated between the brand and the agency team so that you can take action and be responsive. And that means having, frequent conversations, establishing a cadence of when you're going to review what's happening with your campaign and those results that you've achieved to date, and then make those thoughtful, strategic decisions on the optimizations that you're going to put in place. And why that's important, particularly from an auto perspective, is our consumer journey for automobiles is very long and it's not linear at all. So an in-market auto intender may make a purchase in September, but start the research many months before that, which means that we have to be speaking to that consumer as much as 6 or 8 months in advance of when they may actually make a purchase. The other piece that I see that's very important here is that we have really come to a place in media where we have more end-to-end solutions, beginning with targeting, so we can go all the way from initial targeting to messaging to campaign results and be able to evaluate everything along that path, which is very exciting for people on my side of the desk. And more forms of media are inherently more flexible than they've ever been. So particularly in the area of advanced TV, which encompasses addressable, connected television, over the top, and programmatic, this is an extremely targeted form of media in the video space, which helps us immensely to be able to reach people that we can't reach any other way. And we also can optimize this form of media while we're in campaign. So we're getting even closer to that household level. We're getting closer to those personalized forms of connection and communication, which is all very important.
Yeah, Jen, I think one of the things, I'm a TV advertising guy, and I love the point that you made, as much as I would like to believe every once in a while that the TV ad drove the sale, it's really the combination of the TV ad, what you're doing online, the email that somebody received. And you were talking a little bit how that journey, that consumer journey, and optimizing the whole journey is so important for Team One and Lexus.
Yes, it really is. And that's one thing that we talk about internally quite frequently is that, this is not just a media exercise. We are looking at our CRM. We're looking at our event strategy. We're looking at everything that we put into market. And, it's an amazing day and age that we have now where we can look across all of the things that we're doing within that marketing budget and be able to make very strategic decisions about where our money is being spent and how the consumer is responding and reacting.
Yeah, I think we see a real shift in the marketplace as marketing teams, CMOs, have realized some of the benefits of moving to a unified measurement solution. In fact, Forrester, during their 2016 wave, suggested that the marketers that they surveyed, the CMOs that they surveyed, over 80% of them said that they were either already moved or planning to move within the next 12 months to a new unified measurement solution. So Jason, what's really behind this shift? How does unified measurement work, and what makes it so superior to older tools?
Yeah, sure. So as I mentioned before, it's really more important than ever to use person-centric data as opposed to aggregate data for marketing measurement. Now let's explore this a little bit further. So what marketers really want is the ability to measure the impact of each creative message to each individual person. We hear many people in the industry talking about the ROI of media, but the truth really is that it's not the ROI of TV or social or digital. It's really the ROI of the creative message delivered through TV, social, or digital. So what this means is that you can take the exact same media budget with a different message and get a different ROI. And you can take the exact same budget and adjust the targeting of the message and improve the ROI. So if you get down to the person level measurement of what message motivated what person through what channel, you can really unlock a lot more opportunity to improve your ROI. And this is really what Marketing Evolution calls person-centric media and creative optimization. And it means that we can give you a lot more detail, really down to the insertion level for every impression. So in addition to the value of granular measurement, these tools are becoming much more mainstream, and marketers are seeing the need for this level of understanding really in order to maintain that competitive edge. Many brand leaders in their respective industries are using unified measurement solutions and are seeing a 20, 30, or even 40% ROI from the insights and campaign optimization recommendations provided by these solutions. So I really think in the near future, it's going to become increasingly important to adopt a similar solution in order to be nimble and make the most efficient use of your marketing investments. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Jen. So I know that Team One and Lexis moved to a unified solution recently. Can you take us through kind of what was your reason to seek out a new measurement tool and what your challenges and goals were?
Yes, absolutely. So, in the luxury space, it's a very different consumer. They behave and engage and interact with media very differently than mass market, and it's really difficult to reach them through mass media. Oftentimes, we have to go to great lengths to be able to communicate with them in very different ways. The other thing that we have going in our industry is that we have extremely different volume goals depending on the model that we are in market with. And that can vary by several tens of thousands in terms of the number of people that may be interested in that vehicle, how many vehicles we have to move. All of that can create a really interesting situation when it comes to media and marketing and how you get the message out. So we are always interested in better insights into this consumer and making sure that we're building our media plans to be very reflective of that particular audience. So it's not a one-size-fits-all. For us, it really is dependent upon our model lineup and how we go to market. So that dynamic also pushes us to be very efficient in our marketing and our media spending. The more we can bring our communication to that person level, the more effective we're going to be in aiding their purchase journey. And we truly believe that because we know that the consumer responds and reacts to messaging that they find to be relevant to their particular situation when they're in a research mode, they're in a shopping mindset. The greater we can hone in on being relevant in that moment, the better off we're going to be. And then lastly, there's a lot of enhanced targeting in every form of media, including linear television. And those are all fairly recent developments for this field. And the beauty of that is that we can go out and find the data that will help support segmentation of our audiences and be able to apply it to all of our various channels. But we want to be able to know if that's truly working, because every time you do that, obviously you're incurring a data fee to be able to use that data to apply to your buy. And that results oftentimes in an increase in CPM, an increase in your buy overall. But if it's much more targeted and effective in the long run, it's going to save us money because we're not incurring a lot of waste that we may have in the past.
So there seem to be some real compelling reasons for leading brands to move to unified measurement solutions. Lexus, Team One, companies like Carfax, where I used to work, Citibank, others are seeking out a unified measurement solution. But, I think for many people, it can be a little confusing about finding the right solution. How do you know what the right unified measurement solution is for your company? And what are the performance metrics that you really want in a platform? Jason, I was wondering if you and Jennifer could talk us through both what people may want to look for in an attribution solution, and perhaps what Lexus and Team One were looking for as they went through their selection process.
Sure. So I think, first of all, in selecting a solution, speed is really critical. Most brands are facing increased competition, and there are literally thousands of distractions to your consumer every single day. So you really need a solution that provides you with insights at the moment of need in order to make the best decision on where to invest your budget. You also need a solution that's going to be implemented and give you those optimization recommendations, tell you how best you can spend your marketing dollars, tell you where to change your media investments, tell you where to change your creative investments. You want to do that quickly. So a few things that you'd want to ask are, first, ask to see the speed performance through a live demonstration. And also, while you're doing that, ask to see the types of reports you can get during a live campaign. We've talked so much about in-campaign adjustments, so that's really, really important. You're also going to want to find out what's involved in their onboarding process, and ask for their typical onboarding timelines. We're going to talk a little bit more about that at the end of the presentation, but that's something you're also going to want to talk through as well. Be sure to get documented case studies. You want to know how their solutions have helped their customers optimize their media and creative to drive specific return on investment. We've actually seen that a speed advantage can translate into up to a 30% ROI performance for our customers. So Jen, is this something that you can relate to, the need for speed?
Absolutely. I don't think there's a brand on the planet who doesn't want to, see something like 30% and their return on investment be maximized. Everyone is looking for, more money to the bottom line and more money to put into the market if that's what their objective is. And obviously challenging agencies to think differently about how they put those dollars to work for them and demonstrate that it is effective and efficient. I mean, a lot of those, agency and brand relationships and all the way to the C-suite are really being questioned around how agencies are paid. And if you can demonstrate that you have this type of return on investment in mind for their business and you can actually pay it off, that just strengthens your relationship and obviously does great things for the brand. But the need to, be responsive is also showing up in other ways, in other places. As I mentioned earlier, there's a lot happening in the pace of change around us that impacts not just us, our industry, the media industry. It impacts our competition. It impacts the consumer. And all of those things we have to keep in mind and be as responsive and reactive to as we can. So I think, really when it comes to how we plan media and we distribute content, the need for speed is absolutely there and increasing, exponentially every month that passes.
Fantastic. So let's move on to the second point. So second, in selecting a solution, it's really important to know what's working and what's not for both media and creative. So you can have the best media plan like we talked about, but if your creative doesn't motivate your target audience, your media is essentially worthless. So here you really want to find out if the vendor provides creative level analysis that measures different creatives at the person level. If you're not, you're really likely to get a one-size-fits-all analysis of your campaigns instead of really understanding which creatives work best for different audiences at different consideration stages. So that's really important, the ability to measure both media and creative. So Jen, I'd actually like you to talk a little bit more about how you've seen the importance of creative measurement change over the past few years.
So, over the long history of advertising, everybody's always wanted to know how effective is this particular ad going to be when it goes into the market. And, for many, many years, the best we could do would be to be able to conduct focus groups before we put creative into the market. And that represented a very small percentage of our overall audience and target market. So effective, yes, could be. You've also seen where you could go to put different pieces of creative in different markets, isolate them, so do a test market A, a test market B, and a control market, kind of see what kind of a response you may get out of it. But there's a whole host of other factors that may have played into that, from geography to weather to cost of media, et cetera, within those regional test markets. And then, we obviously have moved into where we can test creative online and use a larger sample base in order to do that. But again, it's not really taking it to the level that we'd like to see. So as we move into, the era of tools that allow us that greater insight and the ability to be able to say, okay, I have 2 spots on air right now sitting in linear television. I also have some creative that's running in digital campaigns and online video. What we might begin to see and be able to tell, and it's been guesswork up to this point, how is it performing online? What would happen if I took what I created as online content and put it into a television environment? What would happen if I took creative A and placed it outside of where I currently have it placed in a linear television environment? How would it perform? What kind of results could I expect from that? So to be able to dissect what's happening on the creative standpoint and what really is driving the most engagement and impact is beyond fascinating at this point. So we're, really excited to be able to really understand what's happening with our creative once it's in market, and to be able to react to it while we're in campaign is even better, because it gives us the ability to make those decisions at the time that they matter most.
Yeah, Jen, you mentioned at one point, I know I had this experience. There's a lot of work that goes into testing creative ahead of time, and much of it is based on assumption, but these kinds of tools really do allow the creative to find the right audience. And a lot of times you can be quite surprised by how creative performs and the audience with which it resonates. And that's what you're really after at the end of the day, is finding the right audience for your products and for your services.
Absolutely.
Great, thank you both. So next, in selecting a solution, you're going to want the ability to connect your branding efforts to actual business results. So as you know, companies invest millions and millions of dollars in their branding efforts. With unified solutions that show you which brand building activities drive brand performance, brand is no longer a fuzzy concept, and CMOs can actually show the true value of your brand investments. Here you're going to want to find out if the vendor includes brand surveys and connects those actual individual person-level survey results to person-level sales results. If not, these solutions may be cheaper in cost, but the real cost is going to be campaign optimizations that really fail to properly value brand in your analytics, which can even hurt your sales. And Jen, here I'd like to hear a little bit more about, are your customers finding value in seeing how brand building actually contributes to their business results?
Yes, this is so interesting to me for a couple of reasons. One is that we've seen a lot of pressure on CMOs coming from CFOs and CEOs and Wall Street, and a lot of pressure on that short-term sales lift. And really, what you want to see is more of the intersection of branding and selling, and trying to balance that equation so that you don't abandon what's going to help you from a long-term sales growth perspective. And as we think about that, we look at the history of the Lexus brand in particular. At the onset, and I certainly didn't work on the brand at the time, we're approaching 30 years of existence as Lexus. But, what we know about that history is that, the brand and the birth of the brand really came to be before the launch of the product and the vehicle. So a lot of thought, care was given to that, and a lot of acknowledgement of where luxury consumers and luxury overall was in its evolution at that point in time. And Lexus was, a brand that really wanted to challenge the space, wanted to come in and think differently, look at it differently, and be able to really fly in the face of some of that, your grandfather's luxury and kind of that stoic, staid, very, country club kind of mindset about the idea of luxury. And we see that even changing, and it continues today. But what we feel like Lexus set out to do was really make luxury more accessible, make it more cool, give it that factor so that it really could build from a long-term perspective.
Fantastic. So next, in selecting a solution provider, you're going to want to find out if they incorporate external data like weather, the economy, or maybe other competitive factors, along with geolocation into their analytics. So as you know, all this data, weather data, economic data, this is all data that's readily available and can be very, very important if you're able to integrate that into your analytics. With a solution like Marketing Evolution, you're able to actually see how factors such as customer proximity to a store, the weather, even gas prices will impact your sales or other KPIs. And Jen, since you've worked with a major car brand, I think you might have some good examples on how these insights may have helped, even at the dealership level. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So when we think about, our relationship with our partners, the dealers, and how important it is for them to know that the marketing that we're doing is working, the benchmark that matters to them is how many people they see come into their dealership and start to take test drives and look at the cars that are on the lot. And that's really, pardon the pun, where the rubber meets the road for them. So they want to know, how do you know, manufacturer, brand, agency, that what you're doing is working? And when we think about that, all of the location and place-based measurement tools that are out there today really can help solve that. They complete the consumer journey. So if we know that, the journey started with exposure in a linear television setting, then may have moved online, and then ultimately resulted in someone walking into a dealership, then we've done our job. And we can actually complete and close the loop and give that data back to the dealers. And we've found it to be very effective to be able to share that information with them.
Great. And then finally, what you're going to want to find out is person-level measurement across all channels. So I know we've talked about this a few times during the webinar, but this is really the one thing that's going to give you that competitive advantage. So you really want to be sure that your vendor provides person-level measurement across all media channels, not just digital. If not, your insights could be vague, and they could actually not be reflective of the actual user experience with your messaging. So Jen, since you work with luxury brands, can you shed maybe a little bit more light on why person-level data could be so important to your clients?
Absolutely. As we talked about early on, as a luxury brand, we're not chasing the mass market. We're looking for a very specific consumer from an age, a household income, often an occupation or lifestyle attributes come into play. And it's very important to us to know that what that size of an audience may look like. And it may be surprising to some of the people on the webinar, if you don't work in the luxury space, that sometimes that can be in the single digit millions of individuals, not even in the tens of millions of individuals in the US. So for us, making sure that we're finding that right person at the right time and the right place is super critical, and can mean the difference in success and failure and waste and efficiency when it comes to media.
So a lot of great insights there. Thank you both, Jason and Jen. Now that we've talked about both the problems in traditional tools and some of the things that one might want to look for in a new solution, Jason, I was wondering if you might be able to talk to us. You've gone through the process. You think you've picked the right unified measurement, the right attribution solution provider for you. How do you move from picking the right solution to onboarding and getting results as quickly as possible?
Sure. So Marketing Evolution has really honed our onboarding approach over the past 10 years, really to ensure our customers are successful. So I thought it'd be good to take everyone through the process so you can really understand what a best practice implementation looks like and what you can expect along the way. It's really so critical that marketers who implement a unified measurement solution are able to set clear goals around the implementation process upfront in order to gain that buy-in and get up and running as quickly as possible. So again, you're going to want to talk to your vendors about their onboarding process too, as this can really make or break your success. So what we've done is we've identified 3 different phases. The first phase is the crawl phase. And in this phase, you're going to ensure that you have the right people on the team and that the roles are clearly defined. This is super, super important. Next, you're going to want to get alignment on your objectives and your scope. You're really going to want to align on what success looks like for you. Here, you're also going to integrate your media plans and your performance data into your software, of course, with the help of your vendor. You're also going to want to generate your first media and creative optimization. So that's the software providing recommendations to you about how to change up your media mix and your creative mix to maximize your return on investment. And you're going to want to, once you have those recommendations, you're going to want to implement them. So if you can get all of that part done in the first phase, you've set yourself up for success later on. And then one tip that we have here, it's really helpful to identify your potential power users in this phase. And these are the people that will not only use the system the most, but they're also going to be your best advocates when you roll it out. And then in the second phase, we've got the walk phase. So here, at this point, your marketing team and agency are really able to plan their campaigns in the software by themselves. All of your data is automatically flowing into the platform, including, this is not just your media data, this is including your sales data as well. Your teams are going to have shorter but more frequent touch points to review your campaign results, review the optimizations, make those optimizations. And also here, those super users that I just talked about are going to be using that software to answer more and more complex and longer range questions like budget planning, upfront buying strategy. So that's all in the walk phase. And then when you're really up and running, in the third phase, the run phase, your team is really confident in its ability to run and optimize all of your campaigns through the software. The platform at this point has now accumulated enough data to do meta-analysis, such as examining which creative works within a particular segment, but maybe not others. You've optimized across your entire portfolio of products. So you're able to see which product or offer is best for each consumer given any point in time. You're going to be using hourly, daily, and weekly data to refresh those optimizations across all brands in your entire corporate portfolio. And this is going to help you make the most productive use of your financial resources for the greatest impact. And as a heads up, we do have a really detailed onboarding process around Crawl, Walk, Run that we can certainly share with you. So just really quickly, Jen, I'd like, if you don't mind sharing some of your advice about onboarding your unified marketing solution and what maybe some advice you'd give to CMOs or other marketing leaders.
Yes. So one of the things that I think set us up for early success started even at the beginning of undertaking an RFP and talking to all of the companies that perform in this space. So we assembled a huge team of people at the agency who are all going to be stakeholders within this process. And it ran across our strategy, our media, our account group, and several other dimensions of that. And the reason that we were there was really to say, this is a huge group of people who will be impacted by this. Ultimately, at the end of the day, once we get it up and running and we've selected the partner, but as we go through that partner selection phase, we've got to have a core group of people who will make the decisions on behalf of that larger group. Because if we have 30 people involved, we all recognized that we weren't going to be very nimble or effective or efficient with trying to get decisions made and get things done, and too many people to be involved in platform demos and things of that like. So the beautiful thing was that we all kind of went around the room and anointed people from our team to be the person on that particular group that would make the decisions on behalf of their team. And it worked really well for us. The other advice I would give is, for us as an agency, we were at the forefront of this process for Lexis and with Lexis, and that was really critical and important because most of the data that is going to flow through the platform is coming from us because we make the media buys, we have the buying software, all of that reporting, all of that critical data from a functionality perspective. The earlier your agency knows about what's coming and the requirements for them, the more important it's going to be. If you have multiple agencies, it's even more important to start early with all of those key stakeholders because you're going to have to sort through questions around who's working inside the platform, who's not, how does all the decisions get made about optimization because you're working across so many different entities and stakeholders. So as many brands out there might relate, another key factor in this is that you may not have the staff inside your own organization to be working inside the platform every single day or every week or every month. So your agency is an important party to all of this when it comes to being able to look at what's happening as your campaign is in market and being able to help drive decisions about optimization. So for us, again, we'll have our power users. They will share what their recommendations are based on what they're seeing within the platform to what we're kind of calling our review board, which will be part of our internal stakeholders as well as client stakeholders. And we're setting a cadence and a method for making that happen efficiently and quickly.
So, I can absolutely echo this idea, Jen, that you mentioned about how important it is to assemble the right team to both assess the needs and help with the assessment. And I think, if you're thinking about moving to a unified measurement solution, some of the next steps you might want to consider, Jen might echo this idea. It's really important to get the right people around the table. You cannot have a cast of thousands trying to weigh in on the solution. So identifying the key people, building trust in the decision, getting people to speak into the assessment process, but not necessarily bogging down with every single person voicing an opinion is a really key point. I think the second thing we might recommend based on today's webinar is how important it is to set clear goals and identify the KPIs that are most important to your business. And I think one of the hugely valuable things about a unified measurement solution is that you can move past the measurement of a particular channel's performance and really start tying your marketing to business results, to sales, to brand, and ultimately to shareholder value. So as you move forward, think about the KPIs that really matter to your business. The third thing I would suggest based on today's conversation is that you take a look at the data that already exists inside your agency, inside your company. Conduct an audit of what people are measuring. You may be surprised to learn that the people in your digital marketing channel, your digital marketing team, are measuring a part of performance that your television creative agency might want to know about. This kind of data audit can really help inform all parts of your marketing, from the creative development to the media planning to the optimization and ultimately to those business results that we talked about. And then based on our conversation today, develop an assessment criteria, agree with your team about what's really important to you. We've laid out some things that we, in our experience, have found to be incredibly valuable. They were key for us, but there may be others that are important to your business. Getting a consensus around how you're going to assess, how you're going to grade a particular unified measurement solution, and how ultimately you're going to pick, it's really important to do at the start of the process. If it's all right with Jen and Jason, we have one question maybe from the audience. Jen, maybe to start with you and relevant to the, to our last point, what were some of the major, or were there any hurdles, good advice that you might give to people about pitfalls that you might avoid, or dead ends, or alternatively, what has surprised you about moving to a unified measurement solution? What were you pleasantly surprised to find out that your unified measurement solution was able to deliver for you?
So I think, on the pitfalls side of it, I can't emphasize enough the opportunity to get people involved early, because to make it work, you really want to make sure that you're communicating to everyone in your organization how things are going to work. So, what we've experienced is the more we communicate, what is multi-touch attribution? Who is this company, Marketing Evolution? How is this going to work? What is this going to result in terms of our workflow, our process, how we communicate with each other, and how we communicate with our client? You can encounter a lot of unknowns there. The other important piece of this is that there are other data providers that you're going to need to have contracts with and relationships with, and a lot of brands know that their legal process and reviewing contracts and agreements can be quite extensive and take up a lot of time. And so you don't want to lose traction and valuable time once you've actually started the process of onboarding by having to backtrack and say, oh, I don't have a contract with an onboarding company, or I need to, sew that up. I've got to make sure that I've got all of the providers that are coming into this relationship on board early. So that is another area to take a look at, is how long is it going to take for, legal review of any adjacent contracts you may have to have in this process. The upside, I think, is that, Marketing Evolution makes it really easy. Their team, we have weekly communication with, often between our weekly meetings. There's a lot of communication back and forth. They've seen this. They have people in place who have worked on the agency side, particularly in media, to help us circumvent any issues that we may have in terms of what's the data that needs to be reported and provided. How can we best get those reports from our buying software into the Marketing Evolution platform? So that can be somewhat tricky, depending, because there are many media buying providers out there in terms of software. So that's another area that if you start on that early, you can see great progress and make it a very smooth transition. And then, lastly, I would say that in terms of the ability to be able to look at what we're doing while it's still in market and can make and react to that is absolutely critical and important, and it's very different from any experience that I've had previously with marketing mix modeling because I have lost the ability to be able to make that impact when I need to.
Jason, to wrap up, what do you think the future of unified measurement is? What do you see as the real upside for brands, and what advice would you give to a company looking to find the right solution for them?
Yeah, so I think some of the upside and some of the biggest trends over the next few years that we're going to see are that first is going to be faster decision making. All of us are facing a complicated media landscape and increased competition, while customers have more and more distractions, making it difficult to get their attention. So these new tools are really going to enable marketers to take that disparate data and really find the best levers to pull while a campaign is live. These new tools are also going to help marketers learn how to get better focused. I think the days of the spray and pray approach of marketing is over, and that that approach is going to either it's going to fail. Marketers need to stop doing that, or they're going to fail. With new software, you're actually going to understand what your customers' needs and interests are, and their intents, and be able to develop a much more thought out plan. And I know we mentioned this before, but brand building is critical. Being able to link your branding activities to your actual performance is going to be so important, especially with the the budgets that people spend on branding today. And then finally, no more looking backward. I think that marketers today, we still spend a lot of time looking at results after a campaign is over. In the future, and I mean today with some of these advanced technologies, you're able to make these in-campaign adjustments that can really give you the ability to improve your ROI on your media and your creative and your spend, and also give you that edge over your competition.
Jason, Jennifer, thank you so much for taking the time today. Thank you to everybody who attended today's meeting. Please follow Jen Bolt at Jennifer Bolt or Team One. They're doing great work at Team One USA. And you can keep track of Jason and all his thoughts at Jason Taleshi on Twitter. And follow us at Marketing Evolution, MKTG Evolution. Thank you all again, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thank you, Larry.